On a very gloomy day in fall 2016, I remember walking down from campus to the Wilshire Center to meet with a staff counselor. My mom had been diagnosed with stage 1 cancer a few months prior, but it had spread, and we believed that it was coming to not a great diagnosis. I knew at that point I needed support because I couldn't believe that my healthy, vibrant, beautiful mother had cancer. I remember sitting in the counselor's office on her big, comfy blue couch and looking outside at the weather and thinking, boy, this weather certainly reflects my mood. We had some great conversations, such as asking about how I was doing personally, how my dad, my brother, and other family members were handling the situation, and how my mom was. About midway through the session, the counselor asked me, Megan, what is your greatest fear in all of this? Even repeating the question to you today, I can feel my chest tighten, and I knew the answer immediately. My greatest fear is that she's going to die and I won't be able to survive life without her. After that visit and in the coming months, I remember that my mom's cancer was behaving in rare and aggressive ways, but she actually kept it mostly to herself and to my dad. Knowing how much pain she was in now, I wish more than anything that she had been more open to family and friends supporting her. At the same time, I understand that everyone grieves differently. And I think with the amount of pain she was in and the discomfort, she was grieving in her own way. By the beginning of January, she let the care team at City of Hope and our family know that her body could tolerate no more chemo and radiation, and she just wanted to go home. I wish you could see how her mood swiftly changed the minute we got her comfortable with her hospice team and got her on some pain meds. Finally, we could share stories, cry together, laugh together, figure out where all of our favorite recipes were in her cookbooks, especially her world famous banana bread. And we did everything we could to keep her comfortable. A few weeks passed, and by and far, my mom had a lot of energy. She was healthy otherwise. But around January 19th, we noticed that she was starting to sleep more. On January 20th, 2017, my mom had been sleeping most of the day, but I had come into her room because I just wanted to be close to her. I sat by her bedside, and she must have noted that I was in the room because she was facing away. But with all of her might, she turned and gave me the biggest hug. I remember telling her how much I loved her, and she told me she loved me, and then she went back to resting. Later that night, my beautiful mom took her final breaths on this earth. Suddenly, my life split into two: life with my mom and life after mom. The next day, when millions of people were walking in the Women's March, I felt like our full family descended into what I like to call grief fog. If you can imagine a circle and it all filled in, that is how grief felt. I felt it from my head to the bottom of my toes. Grief truly is a traumatic experience. You feel it mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I also kept thinking that the more we got away from my mom being on this earth, that I wouldn't remember her. But I really remember even now that feeling of heaviness and the fog in my brain. Making certain decisions like eating breakfast, what should I eat, were really hard. Also, something as simple as going to the grocery store felt like a chore. I remember actually being in Sprouts and wanting to tell the whole grocery store, hey, my mom just died. Please be gentle with me. Certain things that used to bring me comfort, like going to church, suddenly weren't so comforting. I remember I finally got enough energy to go to church in like February, so about a month after my mom died. I'm Catholic, and if you know any Catholic hymns, they make you cry. And so, of course, the first time I went back, they played On Eagle's Wings, which was a hymn that was played at my mom's funeral. Needless to say, I didn't make it through the Mass. My energy could change day to day. I remember my in-laws had come in for her funeral, and we had planned weeks in advance that we would maybe, while they were here for a visit, go to the Warner Brothers studio lot tour. While I was very happy to see where Gilmore Girls was filmed, I remember getting back from that and feeling completely depleted. I had no energy. I told my husband, Ryan, I just want to go lay down in my room, turn off the lights, and I don't want to talk to anybody. I can see myself laying there in the dark, and I somehow managed to recover a bunch of deleted voicemails of my mom. I remember scrolling through and just playing every single one because I just wanted to hear her voice. Even today, the simplest voicemail, my mom saying, "Hey, sweetie, it's mom, just calling you back. I love you." That brings me so much comfort even now. Also, in those first days and weeks and months of grieving, I was so concerned about my family members. I was concerned about my dad, my brother who's living in Colorado, my mom's sister, everyone. I felt like her diagnosis and her death had been so quick that everybody was trying to wrap their mind around it. I felt like if I reached out to people, that I would be a burden to them because they were already dealing with their own grief. I knew then and I know now that that's not true. And those people did make space for me. But still, there were many times I just suffered alone because I didn't want to be a burden to anybody. There were so many small and big things, though, that family and friends did for myself and my family that have made such a lasting impression. I remember just getting text messages that said, "Hey, no need to respond. Just want to let you know that I love you and I'm thinking of you." I remember my friend Alexis. She had lost her dad a year before, and she sent this great journal called Angel Catcher, a journal of loss and remembrance. It had great prompts to really help me think through and write down how I was feeling. You might notice that I'm wearing a butterfly necklace today, purple butterfly to be exact. Before my mom died, she said that she saw a bunch of purple butterflies. Purple is her favorite color, and butterflies are just such a beautiful symbol of life and transition. So even today, I receive text messages with purple hearts and butterflies, or receive sweet gifts like this necklace from my mother-in-law that keep her spirit alive. It's something so simple, but even those emojis bring me comfort. I also very much appreciate too my sister-in-law, to my surprise, when my in-laws came out for the funeral, she had made this beautiful book with pictures and quotes of my entire family and my mom. These simple things that maybe took a lot of time or not a lot of time have given me comfort through the years. Before my mom passed away, she shared this beautiful sage advice. She said, "Cherish the past, embrace today, welcome the future. Don't be afraid of what's to come. Your most meaningful growth will happen during the hard times." Boy, is she right. For me, getting to that place of growth has come from being able to be authentic and vulnerable with people I trust about how I've experienced grief. It's about having the opportunity to write how I'm feeling about grief and sharing that with those I trust. But mostly, I have to give so much credit to therapy. You'll hear folks that'll say, "Running's my therapy, wine's my therapy." Therapy is my therapy. I've done a lot of soul work, a lot of self-reflection, and coming to a point in my relationship with my mom where I acknowledge her as a whole person, not just remembering all the good parts about her, but also the not so great too. The first year of grief sucks. It's every day is a new day without your loved one for the first time. Second, third, fourth year and onward, it's living with the permanence that your loved one isn't coming back. I think that through therapy, I have found this duality of grief and gratitude, learning that grief is forever. It's not like an easy, simple stages wrapped up with a bow and you're done. It's fluid. By realizing grief and gratitude coexist, I can be grieving every single day and sad that I don't have my mom physically here with me, but I can also be grateful for all the memories and the love that our family shared with her, the memories, and know that she left me with a lasting legacy of love. One of the best and most wonderful realizations I learned, again through therapy, was that my relationship with my mom did not end on January 20th, 2017. By having a space with someone who's neutral to the situation, I've been able to share stories and also make peace with some of things that in our relationship that were unresolved. I remember Christmas 2015 was the last Christmas we were really able to celebrate Christmas as a whole family. I had told my therapist that I was carrying around this guilt that I had ruined my mom's last Christmas. You see, Christmas was my mom's absolute favorite holiday. She had so many decorations, and that was all fun, but she just loved our family and friends coming together to enjoy the generosity and spirit of the season. It makes sense why my mom loved Christmas. She really was Christmas in human form. So back to Christmas Eve 2015, my mom and I had really a silly disagreement, and it had kind of festered even to after the holiday party ending. And I just remember being in the kitchen, and my immediate family was there, and we were all just kind of in crabby moods, to put it lightly. I remember thinking to myself, gosh, this is not how I saw Christmas Eve going. This is not good, but we're all crabby. Let's go to sleep. And then, we'll start over tomorrow. And next year, Christmas Eve will be better. I wish we could have had that Christmas Eve all together. So I told my therapist, I don't know why, but I feel guilty. I apologized at the time, and I don't know how to move forward with this. She's not here to have this conversation. My therapist said to me, well, Megan, let's imagine that your mom is sitting right next to you on the couch. What would you say to her? I said, I would say, Mom, I'm sorry I behaved like a brat that night. And I have just been feeling this guilt since that evening. I hope that you can forgive me. And I really hope I didn't ruin your last Christmas. I love you so much. My therapist then said to me, great, your mom just heard your apology. So again, she's still sitting next to you. What do you think she would say back? I laughed because I knew exactly what she would say to me. She would say, oh, Megan, yes, you were a brat. But I also wasn't in the best mood either, and we were not all at our best. To be honest, I don't even think about that. I think about Henry and Jane and Eric and Andrew opening their presents. I remember drinking champagne and eating that delicious dinner all together. I remember the laughter. I remember the joy. So please stop holding on to this. This is not a burden you need to bear. I forgive you and I love you. Okay, now go grab us 2 glasses of Chardonnay. Let's catch up. This might seem like a very simple thing, but that role modeling has been very critical in helping me repair some wounds from our relationship that I didn't get to do with her in person. And in fact, it's allowed our relationship to continue. Even today in my day-to-day, sometimes if I'm faced with a difficult decision or wonder what my mom would say, I just take that pause to think about what I would say to her and what she would say back. I find it incredibly comforting. Whether you are grieving or you're supporting someone who is, grief is hard. It's not a problem we can fix, which is very frustrating for us humans because we like to fix problems. Now that I'm 4 years out, I can tell you that there's a George Eliot quote that I really resonate with. George Eliot said, "She was no longer wrestling with the grief, but could sit down with it as a lasting companion and make it a share of her thoughts." I love that imagery. If you remember me talking about the circle all filled in, and that's the grief fog. The circle is still the same size, and it's definitely within me. I always kind of imagine it right by my heart. But instead of it consuming me from head to toe, I have grown around the grief. The grief did not grow around me. I'm here today even be able to talk about this so publicly for the first time because I continue to put in the work and recognize I don't have all the answers, but I know that I can continue to heal. Now, when I feel those pains of grief, instead of it feeling like a massive tidal wave trying to knock me off my feet, I feel like it's just a low tide or high tide wave that comes over and crests and then falls. Don't get me wrong, there are still days that I find myself devastated that she's not here, but I know better what I need to regulate my emotions and get back to living. I think that we all are experiencing grief right now with this pandemic. I want you to know that it is okay to be grieving and grateful during this time. Both can exist. When the time comes for you to support a grieving loved one, remember that you can't fix it. And that's okay that that's hard and uncomfortable. Meghan Markle said, in being invited to share our pain, together we take the first steps toward healing. If someone comes to you and wants to share, please, if you can, allow that space, whether it's a text message or being in person or Zooming, whatever it looks like, to let that person express how they're feeling. I know sometimes we all have a hard time thinking about words of comfort or things to say. Oftentimes that big question of, how are you, feels really overwhelming. So in fact, I'd like to offer asking, how are you today? How are you right now? That is a much easier question to answer. Along with giving those, warm, comforting words of, I'm so sorry for your loss, or sending my deepest condolences, let your loved ones know that you are there for them, and then be there for them, not just in the first days and weeks, but in the days, weeks, years leading afterwards. Finally, I would advise just being specific with how you can help. I can't tell you how many lovely friends and family said, let me know if there's anything I can do. Again, not so great at asking for help. And so I've learned that when people were very specific about what they could do, that made all the difference. So getting a text message or a phone call like, hey, I'm at Ralph's, do you need anything? And me being like, I'm pretty sure I smell, so yes, can you get me some deodorant? Just simple things like that. Being able to sit in silence with your loved one, letting them talk, cry, scream, whatever that looks like, is so, so helpful. Remembering anniversaries and anything traditional that person loved, like for my mom, baking bread. It is so wonderful when people share those stories with us. For something literally every single person will experience in their life, we don't talk about loss and grief nearly enough. I have a vision for the future, and I know that we can get there by living authentically and living a life with open to vulnerability. I'm currently reading a book called It's Okay to Not Be Okay by Megan Lebre, and I really love how she describes what the future of grief could look like. Instead of having expectations of grief being on or off, you're either in total grief fog mode or you've completed the stages and you're done and over it. We really should be living in middle ground. She describes it beautifully, saying it's a place that honors the full breath of grief, which is really the full breath of love. When I think about my mom and every loved one that we have lost, I think about the things I love the most about them, and I try to be those things every day and also pass on those characteristics and strengths to my daughter. My mom left a legacy of love, not only with me, but with my brother, my dad, her sister, all family and friends. She touched so many lives, and I believe that people remember her because she made them feel valued and important. Right before the holidays, I read this quote, and it really stuck with me. If you know someone who has lost a very important person in their life, and you're afraid to mention them because you may make them sad by reminding them that they died, you're not reminding them. They didn't forget that they died. What you're reminding them of is that you remembered that they lived. And that is the greatest gift. Today, I am bigger than my grief. I have grown around my grief. The grief is here to stay, but that's okay. It's a reminder that with great love comes great grief, but I can carry both around as a companion with me for the rest of my life. Remember my greatest fear? Only part of it came true. My mom died, but I am surviving it. One breath, 1 hour, and one day at a time. Thank you.